Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session Harnessing AI for Ethical Hacking Challenges and Opportunities. I am Reenal Vicaria, and I'll be your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules. For our attendees, the session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which the last 15 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. Now about our speaker, Don Warden. Don Warden is a cybersecurity leader with over 30 years of experience in defending and securing complex environments across multiple industries. His extensive background spans digital forensics, cyber threat intelligence, and incident response, wherein he has handled high stakes cases involving ransomware, insider threats, and cyber extortion. A trusted advisor on cybersecurity strategy, Dawn has guided organizations through threat mitigation and recovery while ensuring compliance with frameworks like the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification (CMMC). Holding advanced certifications, including Certified Ethical Hacker (CEH) and Certified Cyber Security Analyst (CCSA), along with a master's in cybersecurity and information assurance, Dawn brings a seasoned perspective to AI-powered cybersecurity and ethical hacking innovations. So without any further delay, I would now hand over the session to you, Dawn.
Thank you. So we'll jump right into it. We have a lot of material to cover today. There's a lot of things that are exciting to talk about today. So quick look through our agenda. We're going to go into an introduction around our topic. We're going to talk about how AI has changed ethical hacking. We'll look how it's revolutionizing the penetration testing and security assessments that certified ethical hackers and other red teamers are doing throughout the world. We'll talk about the opportunities in AI-powered ethical hacking and look at the benefits of doing automation, predictive intelligence, self-learning AI, and ethical hacking. We'll also talk about the challenges and the risks. AI is not without problems, and those problems include bias, adversarial AI, and also some regulatory concerns. We'll go through a couple of case studies where we'll look at some real world examples where AI has played a critical role in cybersecurity. We'll look at the best practices and we'll discuss the strategies for responsible AI use and look at the emerging trends that are going on. And then we'll talk about some final thoughts and go into a Q&A. So, artificial intelligence, AI, excuse me, is transforming ethical hacking by allowing us to automate reconnaissance, vulnerability detection, even exploitation processes. And unlike using traditional penetration testing, which relies heavily on manual techniques, AI-driven ethical hacking introduces an unprecedented amount of speed and efficiency that we can't do as humans. For example, AI-powered reconnaissance tools can map an entire organization's network in a matter of minutes, and that's a process that previously took days or weeks. AI can also analyze vast amounts of log data to identify the patterns and anomalies that may indicate vulnerabilities. However, this same technology can be weaponized by adversaries and allows them to launch sophisticated automated attacks at an unprecedented scale. So how does AI enhance ethical hacking? So the first way is through automation and efficiency. AI-driven security solutions reduce the burden on cybersecurity teams by automating the repetitive tasks such as the log analysis, network scanning, and behavioral anomaly detection. It allows us to do some predictive threat detection. AI can recognize subtle attack indicators that human analysts just overlook, and allows security teams to act before a breach even occurs. There's also self-learning AI. So AI models continuously refine their analysis and allows them to improve their detection accuracy over time. This is really useful whenever you're doing threat hunting and behavioral analytics, where AI detects deviations from a normal activity pattern. Some of the challenges and risks in AI ethical hacking is AI bias. So AI models learn from historical data, which may introduce bias, which makes them ineffective whenever detecting new or unconventional attack patterns. This can lead to false negatives, which leaves organizations feeling like they're covered when they're really not. The second problem is ethical misuse. Cyber criminals also have access to AI tools, and they can exploit them through automated attacks. A good example of that is deepfake phishing. So deepfake phishing campaigns use AI-generated voice or video to impersonate executives, and it can trick employees into transferring funds or sharing sensitive company data or even credentials. Other examples are adversarial AI attacks. So they'll use AI to bypass security mechanisms. They'll generate malware that modifies itself dynamically to avoid detection by antivirus engines, or even absolutely take them down. We also have a black box problem. Many AI-driven security solutions operate as black boxes, which means that their decision-making processes are opaque. It makes it difficult for security professionals to actually trust the AI's recommendations without the manual validation that's needed. So we do have a need for responsible AI use. As long as you understand these risks, it's crucial whenever you're using them in ethical hacking. AI is a powerful tool, but human oversight remains essential to ensure that the accuracy, accountability, and ethical cybersecurity practices are followed. So how has AI transformed ethical hacking? As I mentioned previously, traditional penetration testing was a very labor-intensive process. It required a great amount of skilled professional need to scan the networks, probe for vulnerabilities, and to attempt various exploits. This was an effective way to do things, but it was time-consuming and it was prone to human error. And whenever we started getting into larger scale environments, it was really, really tough to do the analysis. So the AI-driven enhancements have allowed us to streamline and enhance the penetration testing capabilities that we previously didn't have. So for example, we can do automated reconnaissance and attack surface mapping, and we'll use tools like Shodan and Maltego to scan an entire infrastructure in minutes. It allows us to identify exposed assets, the open ports, potential vulnerabilities that is at a scale that was absolutely impossible for us just years ago using manual assessments. We have AI-driven reconnaissance that helps us reduce the time needed for an attack surface enumeration. So it allows us to focus on exploiting and validating the most critical findings that are out there. It also allows us to get a little bit more intelligent about our vulnerability analysis and our prioritization of targets. So you could use a scanner like OpenVAS, Nessus, or Tenable.io to analyze the vulnerability that are based on severity and real-world exploitability. So AI also allows us to do cross-reference real-time threat intelligence feeds. So this allows us to reduce our false positives and allows us to highlight the most pressing security risks that are in an environment. And then the machine learning models predict zero-day vulnerabilities by detecting the patterns in an unknown or misconfigured asset. And it offers a proactive risk assessment. So AI-assisted exploitation and attack paths simulations, we use frameworks like the MITRE Caldera and IBM Watson for cybersecurity. And it can simulate attack behaviors, which allows our red teams to prioritize the most effective attack vectors. We have AI-driven fuzzing tools that autonomously generate thousands of payloads to identify input validation flaws, buffer overflows, and code execution vulnerabilities. AI can chain vulnerabilities together, simulating multi-stage attacks to reveal weaknesses that would otherwise go unlooked. And lastly, self-learning AI attacks and adaptive hacking strategies. These models analyze how a target responds to attack prompts and dynamically adjust the methods in real time. Instead of relying on a static playbook, AI can evolve based upon the defensive mechanisms that are detected. And it's similar to how the APTs adapt to cybersecurity measures. AI-powered penetration testing platforms continuously improve from past attack attempts, and it makes security assessments more effective over time. So the trade-off with this is that there are some limitations and challenges. While it enhances the penetration testing, it's not a replacement for the human expertise that's needed. And over-reliance on automation can lead to the blind spots in AI decision-making, particularly with novel threats that an AI has never encountered, and overconfidence in your AI findings. So without manual verification of real-world exploitability, you could be overconfident in a finding. And then lastly, ethical and legal concerns. So as AI-driven hacking techniques push the boundaries of compliance, we need to stay on top of those things. So AI is revolutionizing penetration testing by reducing the manual effort. It increases our accuracy and enables our predictive assessments. But the human oversight remains critical to validate the AI findings. It ensures our responsible use and adapts strategies beyond the AI limitations. So some opportunities. AI has introduced transformational benefits to ethical hacking, and it makes penetration testing faster, smarter, and more efficient. Here are 3 key ways that AI enhances security assessments. Automation and efficiency. So the AI dramatically reduces the manual workload in penetration testing by automating the repetitive and time-consuming tasks such as reconnaissance, network scanning, and privilege escalation. It can process thousands of assets simultaneously, which identifies the vulnerabilities at scale and speed that are impossible for humans. So as I mentioned before, Nessus and OpenVAS use AI-driven scanning engines to detect vulnerabilities, assess the risk levels, and prioritize the remediation steps. AI enhances these tools by cross-referencing the vulnerability databases with the real-world exploits. We have predictive threat intelligence. It's not just about identifying existing vulnerabilities, it's about predicting where attacks could likely occur by analyzing historical attack patterns, the network behaviors involved, and the real-world threat intelligence. So when we leverage the machine learning tools, the AI can correlate things that are seemingly unrelated, allows the organizations to proactively defend against emerging threats before they're exploited. So for example, using a tool like MIST, the malware information sharing platform, and Yeti to integrate AI, you can identify, classify, and track attack vectors, and it helps your security teams to preemptively adjust the defenses against the anticipated threats. We can use self-learning AI for red teaming. So AI-driven pen testing tools continuously refine the attack techniques by learning from failed attempts and attempting new security defenses. They can simulate real-world attacks that mimics adversaries by adjusting strategies in real time based upon how the security controls respond. So using Darktrace and IBM Watson cybersecurity AI, we can use behavioral analysis and machine learning to replicate the advanced persistent threat, or APT, tactics, which helps our security teams evaluate and strengthen the defenses before the real attackers strike. So AI is redefining penetration testing. The key is finding the right balance. So using the AI to automate, predict, and adapt while ensuring that security teams validate and interpret the AI-driven insights. So some of the challenges that we have, as I mentioned before, are bias in the AI models. So all the systems are only as good as the data they are trained on. If a model is trained primarily on the past threats, it could struggle to identify the novel attack vectors that deviate from these historical patterns. This leads to the blind spots where the AI fails to recognize it and zero-day exploits that have never been experienced before. So a security AI trained on legacy threats may over-prioritize outdated vulnerabilities while missing emerging attack techniques, which leaves organizations exposed to new exploitation. AI is used by cyber criminals as well. So AI is a double-edged sword. Just as security professionals leverage AI to improve defenses, attackers use it to automate and enhance their cyber threats. It allows them to scale their attacks. It makes them faster, more efficient, and harder to detect. So we have, now you've probably heard about AI-powered malware. Attackers use AI-driven malware to dynamically alter their code and the behavior of their code to evade detection. So malware families like Emotet and TrickBot incorporate the AI to analyze the security defenses and adjust the execution of their code accordingly. And AI-generated malware can learn from failed attempts and tweak itself to avoid antivirus and endpoint detection solutions. Lastly, regulatory and legal concerns. So AI-driven penetration testing, it pushes the ethical and legal boundaries, which raises concerns about compliance and responsible AI use. Organizations have to ensure that their AI security programs align with regulations such as GDPR, and it must not compromise user privacy or data security. Another example is in HIPAA. So AI-driven security solutions must protect the sensitive healthcare data. We also want to take a look at the NIST cybersecurity framework. We need to operate within the approved security guidelines to ensure ethical cybersecurity practices are followed. So again, and I know I keep hammering this home, as AI models keep becoming more autonomous, who is held accountable if an AI-driven penetration test disrupts critical systems or violates data privacy laws? So while AI-powered security offers major advantages, it has to be balanced with human expertise to validate the findings, to ensure compliance, and adapt to adversarial AI attacks in real time. It's a very powerful tool, but without proper oversight and ethical considerations, it introduces more risks than solutions. So to better understand the impact of AI on ethical hacking, let's look at a couple of real-world cases that I've worked on where AI has been successfully leveraged in penetration testing and cybersecurity defense. Both of these examples highlight the power and the limitations of AI-driven security tools. So at a Fortune 500 company I worked with, our challenge was that the traditional penetration tests were time-consuming. It took us weeks to go and scan this very large enterprise environment. The manual approach, it also often missed subtle attack vectors, especially 0 days and misconfigurations. And our security team struggled with prioritizing the vulnerabilities because we had to sift through thousands of security alerts. So at this company, we implemented an AI-powered penetration framework that automated the scanning, it prioritized the risks, and it helps predict exploitability. So utilizing the tools, we were able to reduce the scanning time by 50% while also detecting previously unknown security flaws. So the tools that we used within this environment were Pantera automated security validation, which we use the AI-driven attack emulation to continuously assess the real-world attack paths. We also use IBM Watson for cybersecurity, which allowed us to analyze vast security data sets and do correlation vulnerability analysis in real time. And we also utilize MITRE Caldera, which assessed it with our automated red teaming and allowed the security teams to test the AI-driven penetration testing in a controlled environment. So the outcome of this was that we were able to identify the 0-day vulnerabilities that the manual pen testing had missed. It also assisted us with our prioritization of the most exploitable weaknesses, which allowed our security teams to focus on the high impact threats first. So AI versus AI. This is what we call the cyber arms race. The challenge is, as AI-driven cybersecurity solutions become more advanced, attackers leverage the same tools that we have to bypass defenses. And the key battleground in this war is phishing, where attackers use AI-generated emails to craft highly convincing social engineering attacks. So traditional security solutions struggle to detect AI-generated phishing emails, which are even more sophisticated, grammatically correct now. There are no more African prince emails that come across anymore. It's a lot more complex, and it's also contextually relevant to the user that is under attack. So a solution to use for this is implementation of AI-driven email security that allows you to detect AI-generated phishing emails based upon the behavioral patterns and the linguistic analysis. So AI is revolutionizing penetration testing and cybersecurity, but the effectiveness depends on how it is implemented and is balanced with a human oversight. So to harness AI responsibly, organizations must follow best practices and stay ahead of the emerging AI-driven security trends. We have to balance AI with human expertise. While AI can automate vulnerability scanning, reconnaissance, and attack simulations. It cannot replace human intuition, strategic thinking, and contextual understanding. Security professionals must validate the AI-generated findings and ensure that the detected vulnerabilities are truly exploitable and not false positives. Human analysts still play a critical role in interpreting complex attack patterns, and it helps refine the AI models and make the judgment-based security decisions that AI alone cannot and should not make. AI-driven penetration as a service and deception technologies. So penetration as a service, or PTAAS, is an emerging trend where AI automates continuous penetration testing in cloud-based or hybrid environments. So instead of relying on periodic manual pen tests, AI-driven PTAAS provides ongoing security validation and real-world and real-time attack simulation. So with Pantera, you could use AI-driven attack simulation to continuously validate your organization's security posture. With IBM Watson for cybersecurity, you can use AI to identify security gaps and simulate attacks based on the current threat intelligence. Deception technologies leverage AI to create fake attack services, which lures the cyber criminals, and it helps us gather intelligence on their tactics. So some of the other tools that are utilized are Ativo Networks. It deploys an AI-powered decoy system to detect and contain threats before they reach critical assets. Elusive Networks uses AI to generate false attack paths, which misleads attackers while security teams monitor their movements. And lastly, we need to ensure responsible AI use in cybersecurity. AI-driven penetration testing must align with ethical and legal frameworks like we described previously, GDPR, NIST, and HIPAA. We need to make sure that the organizations adapt explainable AI, XAI models, where security teams can interpret and audit the AI decisions to prevent the bias and ensure fairness. So key strategies around this is regularly audit the AI-driven security tools for accuracy, bias, and reliability. Implement human-in-the-loop systems to ensure that AI recommendations are validated before there is execution. And make sure that you establish clear ethical guidelines on how AI-based hacking techniques can be used in legal controlled environments. So some final thoughts. AI enhances penetration testing, but it requires responsible use. Ethical hackers must stay ahead as AI-driven threats evolve. And lastly, the future is AI augmented and not AI replaced. We will always have the need for the human ethical hackers to make sure that AI bias is not introduced and that we stay within the legal frameworks. Thank you. Pass it back to you, Renal.
Thank you very much, Don, for delivering such an insightful and informative session. We found the webinar very engaging and we hope it was valuable for you as well. So before we begin with the Q&A, I would like to inform all the attendees that the session is in sync with EC Council Certified Ethical Hacker CEH program. EC Council Certified Ethical Hacker certification is mapped to a variety of roles in the cybersecurity industry, including ethical hacker, security analyst, security consultant, site administrator, and network management executive. As per LinkedIn 2022, it lists over 1,000 jobs seeking ethical hacking skills worldwide, and individuals holding the CEH certification can earn an average annual salary of USD 96,000 in the United States, as per PayScale 2022. If you're interested in learning more, please participate in the poll being conducted now. Let us know your preferred mode of training and we will reach out to you soon. So Don, should we proceed with the question and answers?
Certainly.
So the first question for you is, how can AI be prevented from being exploited by malicious hackers?
So it's impossible to ensure that AI cannot be utilized by malicious hackers. And that's why it's important for us to make sure that we stay on top of our games and use more correct models to help ensure that we can react appropriately to the attackers that have access to the same tools that we do. So it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game, very similar to the way that it was whenever we were doing manual red team and blue teaming in a real world environment. So while we cannot make sure that threat actors cannot use AI, we can certainly make sure that we are constantly doing corrections on the manner in which we utilize AI.
Thank you for answering that. Our next question for you is, are there any learning opportunities that you are aware of to help us potential pivot to a more AI-driven red-blue approach?
So this area of cybersecurity is so emerging that there are very few areas where you can do learning, but there are some. It takes a lot of searching. I know that the EC Council has developed and they continue to develop some educational activities around artificial intelligence. The other challenge with AI is that it is evolving so quickly that it's almost impossible to not have stale content by the time that you have to go through the traditional educational cycles. So this is an area where you have to really stay on top of your game and be constantly doing your own self-research as well.
Thank you for answering that, Don. Our next question is, what is the best way to implement AI in security operations for detecting anomaly in the network and how to apply?
So there are a lot of different commercial tools that are out there. Most of your network scanning, like I mentioned, for example, Nessus and Tenable will allow you to do those types of activities to look for anomalous activity. Also, a lot of the EDR vendors, the big three, they do have their own data lakes where they do continuous analysis across all their global data sets to be able to look at correlation data that's then fed back into the EDR within your environment that would help you make those decisions in a more quick fashion. So just leverage some of those tools that are out there. Having a good SIM in play to be able to help with the mass amount of data aggregation that comes from all the different AI models, so you can have a single pane of glass that will help you stay informed and be able to react in a more appropriate fashion to any attacks.
Thank you, Don. Our next question is, for providing AI-based pen testing services, does one needs deep technical hands-on skills?
So to do penetration testing as a service, I know there are several different companies that provide this, and you can buy this. It does not require a lot of skills to do the pen testing as a service. However, as I mentioned throughout the presentation, there are a lot of ethical boundaries that need to be followed. We're still in a process, especially within the United States, of developing the guardrails that are appropriate for, excuse me, use of those products. So while you don't have to be classically trained in hacking to be able to do, utilization of those tools, you do need to have some training in the methods that would be utilized, and especially within the ethical considerations.
Thank you, Don. Our next question for you is, how can we be sure AI won't be used as a replacement for humans? Seems every domain AI is becoming better and will only need experts in the future.
So that's a great question. I think that, there are certain roles that will be affected by AI just because AI is going to be able to do that job so much better. One area where you could see that shift would be in entry-level analysts, as an example. So my recommendation for cybersecurity practitioners is to make sure that you have a good handle on all the different AI tools that are out there and available, and make sure that you have those skills to be able to leverage those tools, because at the end of the day, you still need to have the humans that provide the input and the data to the AI models that allow them to operate properly. And again, it's not ethical for us to just go and unleash an AI model to go do anything, right? We always have the need for humans to stay in the loop and make sure that the AI is operating within the proper legal and ethical guardrails.
Thank you, Don. Our next question is, how does one identify an attack vector using steganography with AI tool?
What was that second part, man?
Repeat the question. How does one identify an attack vector using steganography with AI tool? Steganography.
Oh, stenography. Okay. Yeah, so that's an area where AI would excel within steganographic analysis. For a human being to go and find those types of patterns, it is extremely time consuming. An AI model could be trained to almost instantly be able to identify those types of those techniques that are used in steganography. So that is an absolutely awesome use case for AI.
Thank you, Don. Our next question for you is, could you define or explain AI bias again?
So AI bias really boils down to that the AI model is only as good as the data that it's trained on. So for example, let's say that you only trained your AI model to look at, let's say, Black Basta attacks. So Black Basta, as an example of a threat actor, would only use a certain amount of TTPs that one would anticipate to see whenever they were trying to get into an environment, and then once they were in an environment, how they laterally spread. So if you limited the amount of input data, or you only used stale data to train your AI, that's where the bias would go into play. Or let's say that you underestimate the threat of, let's say, phishing, for example, right? And so you overtrained your AI to look at other attack vectors that didn't include phishing. Those are examples of bias within the AI models. So it's really, again, it boils down to the AI is only as good as the data that it's trained on.
Thank you so much, Don. Our next question is, what is the best tool as per you? Please suggest some name.
The best tools to use? Really it depends on your use case, but I did mention a couple of the tools that you could utilize within the presentation, which will be available. I use Tenable and I use Nessus all the time to help me with reconnaissance and with speed. Shodan.io is used both by ethical hackers and by threat actors to be able to go and do large swaths of analysis on the surface area of a different target that we would be looking at attacking. Those are three examples of some tools that I would utilize. But every single day there are new companies that pop up, and I would caution you to do your diligence to ensure that the manner in which they're utilizing their AI is within the guardrails of ethical and legal constraints, and also make sure that their data sets are proper so that you don't introduce those biases that we've talked about.
Thank you so much, Don. We are receiving a lot of questions, and for the time being, we cannot answer each one of them in the live Q&A. So we request all of you to write your questions in the Reddit channel, and our speaker will be there to provide answers.
Sure.
So our next question for you, Don. What tool will you advise for test penetration on the network, especially if open to vulnerabilities or a request by an external auditor for control?
So there are a lot of different tools that you can use. Like I've mentioned, Nessus. I use Nessus at clients both for internal and external scanning almost daily. If you want to look at more OSINT face tools, Maltego is good, especially with all the various plugins that you can use to be able to do reconnaissance and to be able to help with your audit findings and to be able to prove to an auditor. But I think for the money, I like Tenable, and I like Nessus a lot.
Thank you, Don. Our next question is, what is your opinion to protect our digital data in case to be used by AI model in cyber army?
So what I always tell clients, and this applies not only to AI, but it also applies to the data and the networks in general, is to make sure that you use a layered approach to security. Having a single dependency or a single point of failure is not good. So in the past, there were a lot of people that just relied on firewalls. People figured out that you couldn't just rely on a firewall, that they could be breached. And so then they went to EDR. And then we found out that EDR could be breached. So there need to be different layers of security within the environment that are always looking for the threats that are always coming at your environment. And where AI is extremely useful is looking at the correlation data that you would typically see within a traditional SIM environment. If you have a SIM that is also utilizing AI, then that's going to help you be better protected from those types of attacks within the AI itself. But there's no novel solution for the age-old problem of making sure that you have the various layers of security there.
Thank you, Don. Next question is, are you finding that AI is reporting more false positives than manual scans, or is it less?
So again, it really depends on the data models that are fed into the AI. I think in the initial training phase, and I think that's part of the life cycle of utilizing AI, is to run through several different cycles or dry runs to ensure that whenever you do those types of audits, manual versus the automated, that you could pinpoint where there might be some gaps in your data that's used to train, and also if you have any kind of bias that's been introduced. So that would be my advice, is to run it through various cycles, do some manual auditing to make sure. And that's why I always say that it's important to make sure that the human element is not excluded from any of the utilization of AI.
Thank you, Don. Next question. How does AI use affect investment in infrastructure, both human and machinery?
So I don't see at this point where AI is going to allow you to do a lot of cost savings. Where AI is going to help an organization is really through more efficiency. I think that right now, a lot of the models are extremely expensive and they could be cost prohibitive for organizations versus, having a human analyst. But I think over time that the break point is going to, become more reasonable on the costs of the AI. So I don't see that there's going to be an overturning of the apple cart just yet, but the convergence point is quickly approaching as the costs go down.
Thank you, Don. Our next question for you is, you have said that AI vulnerability detection tool helps detect zero-day vulnerability. If the vulnerability is vendor specific, how can an organization help patch them?
What was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
If the vulnerability is vendor specific, how can an organization help patch them?
In a Windows specific environment, oh boy. Um, so the challenge with a Windows environment, well, it's twofold. Number one, it's the largest attack surface on the planet, just given the fact that Windows has such a huge market share of compute. The second thing is that when you look at the overall matrix of hardware, software that could be on any given endpoint, every piece of that puzzle introduces a brand new entry point for someone to exploit for an attack. So it's important again to have the layered approach, and also to make sure that you have a good patch management strategy in place. A lot of organizations traditionally would only do patching once a month on their servers. Now, if something is identified, it needs to be taken care of immediately. It cannot wait. That's just the way everything has kind of evolved. So, making sure that you have a good patch management strategy in place with Windows, make sure it's patched, make sure your applications are patched, and then layer that with, a good EDR, a good SIEM that's integrated with a data lake or an AI. That's probably about as good as you're going to get. But there's no silver bullet to making Windows secure other than turning it off.
Thank you, Don. We will be taking last two questions for the day. And our second last question for you is, for AI powered malware, is the logic correct that AI powered endpoint protection tools will detect them?
Well, sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. It really depends again on the data set that AI is trained on. So the larger the data set that you're able to utilize, the more likely that you are to be able to detect the novel techniques that are utilized on a zero-day attack. So, doing your diligence on the vendor, pressing them with hard questions about how they use their data, how they use correlation data across all the endpoints that they see across the globe, to be able to identify emerging trends is extremely important. And that's where I see the future of EDR going.
Thank you, Don. Our last question would be, is it possible that AI bypass the security of DLP?
Absolutely. It's it's I mean, if manual people can bypass different DLP platforms, then certainly an AI would be able to do that. So I think that it could also do it more efficiently to where you may not be able to identify the trend lines that you typically see whenever you have data leakage over time from, let's say, an insider threat where someone wants to take data. It's going to be worse, and it's going to be more efficient than a human could be.
Thank you, Don. And for our audience, if your question still remains unanswered, please write in our Reddit channel. And thank you again to our wonderful speaker, Don, for answering all those questions and for the great presentation and the knowledge shared with our global audience. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and we are definitely looking for more and more sessions with you.